welcome back to Art with Miss Yazel. All right, third graders, let's look at our I can statement for today. I can identify how to enhance an artwork. Enhance meaning make it better. We're always looking to be better artists and ways to improve. There are some things we're really good at, and there are some things that we just need to do again and again before we get the hang of it. What is that called when we do something over and over again to get better? Starts with a P. That's right. Practice. Practice doesn't make perfect, but practice does make you even better than you were the last time you did it. So nobody is perfect. Even Miss Yazel makes mistakes. So we're not going to say practice makes perfect, but practice does make you better and better at what you need to do. There are other ways to make sure that you can enhance your work also. So let's look at some of the ways. We can, number one, practice. Number two, you can plan your art. That means sketch out things so that you know what you have an idea of what you're going to do before you actually finish the artwork. Always use good craftsmanship. We're going to be working on that today. Boys and girls get in a hurry and they don't use good craftsmanship and their work suffers from it. Now, sometimes we are trying to go for a look that looks really scribbly. In fact, there are artists who do that on purpose. But if you are trying to make a picture that looks like one that you want hung up on a wall, most of the time you are trying to use good craftsmanship. Also, there are artists who just dripped paint, and that is a very messy way to work, but they created some really interesting paintings doing a drip and splatter technique, like Jackson Pollock. If you want to look him up, he used an action painter. He used to sling the paint onto the canvas and let it drip everywhere. But we are going to practice our good craftsmanship like we are trying to be neat so that things really stand out and are noticed. Now, we don't want people to notice that we colored messy. We want them to notice the things that we drew and be able to understand what the picture is about. Always add some details to your picture just to make it a little more interesting, unless you are just doing a picture where you're doing looking at lines, shapes, and colors, some kind of abstract art, then you probably wouldn't add a lot of details to it. Find what you're good at and where you need to practice. So when we're talking about art, is it my craftsmanship that needs work? Is it I have trouble coming up with ideas and I really need to work on generating good ideas that are my ideas and not copying other people? So the question on this page says, how can looking at another artist's work help you improve as an artist? So why would you look at someone else's work? Would you look at it just because you wanted to buy it? Or can you use that person's work to look at to help you get better? You can look at artwork just to buy it, but if we're talking about getting better, we're not just going to say, well, I can't do any better than that. I'm just going to go buy one. You also says you can go to a museum and see the lighting on the art. You could take your work to a museum and look at it in the lighting, but it's probably going to be the same work and it's probably going to be similar lighting to what you have at your house. So just taking your work to a museum doesn't make your work any better, does it? So the correct answer is B. You can see what they did well and include it in your own art without copying someone else's work. There's nothing wrong with being inspired, but there is a limit on how much of somebody's ideas you can take and whether you tell people that you found that idea somewhere and not claim that to be your own, because that's called copying and that's not right. So also it's called plagiarism, and that can violate copyright laws if you're not careful. You don't want to copy somebody's work that they have worked hard to produce. So let's look at some fall leaves and we talked a little bit in the classroom with the boys and girls here at school about how warm colors and cool colors are complementary to each other. They make each other look better, and there are some complementary pairs. And when I flip to the next slide, you will see those pairs. But what the boys and girls did was they took one of these leaves off of this page. You can of course do all four if you'd like and create a whole artwork out of all four of them, or you could just cut one out because that's what we had time for in school. And they colored inside the leaf with warm colors, and they colored their background with cool colors. So cool colors are purples, blues, and greens. And yes, blue-green is cool because it's right there between blue and green. It's on the cool side half of that color wheel, isn't it? And then yellow-orange is in the middle of yellow and orange. So definitely it is a cool or warm color because it's on the warm side. Now, when you get to purpley reds and reddish purples and yellow greens, and where they're right there on the line, you're going to have to look at the color and see, do you think it looks more warm or do you think it looks more cool when you color with it? So one of these boys and girls used crayon, the other used colored pencil. You may use whatever you have at home. I even suggested that if they had markers, they could outline each little section and then color it in with the matching color of crayon. And that kind of gives it a stained glass effect. So I'll show you that when I demonstrate. So complementary pairs. So red and green look good together because they are complementary colors. They are actually across from each other on the color wheel. Green and red and yellow and purple are also across from each other. Yellow and purple and blue and orange are complementary pairs as well. So when you're talking about colors that look good together and you want things to stand out, sometimes we will use a warm color in the foreground and the front and cool color for the background, or the other way around. You can see how this looks here, green on top of red and red on top of green. You can do either one. Well, no, you can't. You can't do that because you are using warm for the leaves because that's what colors they change in the fall. So red, orange, and yellow would be your leaf colors, and green, purple, and blue are going to be your background colors when you color today. And then you will probably need the handout that I put on PLP of the leaves, or you can draw your own, color your leaf a warm color, and then glue it to a cool color background. That's all we did. We cut out one of those. We made sure we were using good craftsmanship. We cut one out and we glued it to a background. So I'm going to show you that now. Okay, third grade. We are going to work on being good craftsmen, that having good craftsmanship. We are thinking about warm and cool and the contrast between those two. And we're also thinking about ways we can enhance our work. So anything you can think of that you would like to do coloring wise in this that would make yours different from everyone else's is fine. And definitely I want to encourage you to be creative with this because this is just coloring, and sometimes it's kind of hard to break out of that mold of doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. So what I told you was that you could use the warm colors to outline the shapes and to color in with crayon so that it looks like it's lighter in the middle, and that kind of gives it a stained glass effect. You want to try to make the shapes that are in the background all different. Otherwise, there's just a plain background that's been separated by some black lines. So I would encourage you to use all of the cool colors, or maybe at least two in the background. To enhance the leaf and make it really pop. So I did this leaf red. I'm going to go ahead and use my orange marker. I couldn't find my Crayola one, so I'm using a fine tip marker. And if you have those are they're great to outline with. If you have the regular one, just be very careful and don't press down really hard on the tip, and you can get a nice point with a Crayola marker as well. So I'm outlining, and if you don't have markers at all, that's okay too. I did this completely with crayon. I just outlined with the crayon really heavy and dark, and I don't know if you can see that there's some darker colors around the edges, but you can definitely do a darker colored crayon and then color lightly with it in the middle. So you see how it's going to be darker at the edges. We've got black, and then we've got the darker orange, and then it's going to be lighter in the middle. So we have a difference there, and it's not all the same. So if I were doing this one and thinking about what color background would work well, if I don't use a whole lot of blues in the background to color behind the leaf, then a blue color would really bring out the color of that leaf. So when you go back, try to match. I'm going to use a red orange, or yes, red orange. I had to check the color to make sure that's what I was to go, because this is a very dark orange that I use to color with. So what would look good really behind the orange is some blue. So if I went to do my background, I'm going to make sure that I use the cool colors. This is where a water marker would really come in handy. So you get the idea that you're going to be completely filling in all the shapes, and don't do all of the shapes the same. And then you're going to cut this out. And what we did in class was we just glued it to a piece of construction paper that's a little bit bigger than the leaf, that kind of complements the colors that the person used. Some of these we just kind of had to take a guess, since they've used all the colors. We had to think, what's going to look good behind that? A lot of people just used either really heavy coloring, or they did really light coloring. So you might want to think about a difference in how you color your leaf. Maybe color the leaf darker and the background lighter, or the other way around. The background is darker because you used heavier pressure, and then the leaf is a little bit darker. And I think that's what she's done here. She's got some darker colors, even though they're reds, oranges, and yellows. I can tell she's used a heavier pressure to color this than she did in the background. And it turned out really nice. And just make sure that you're using good craftsmanship. We want to make sure that all the white spaces are out of our coloring when we do that, so that it looks nice. Thanks for watching. Happy creating, third grade.